Hello, this is Joel Lindstrom, and I'm here with another Power Platform answer. In today's answer, we have a question from Rory JC in the Power Users Forum in the Power Apps community. And Rory wants to know how relationships and lookups work. Rory's new to Common Data Service, and so asking some really great questions about how do I get other fields from lookups, and how do I search by other things, how do I look up by other values. So I thought it'd be helpful to do an overview of how relationships and lookup fields work. And there's quite a bit to it, so let's get started. So for the lookup columns, how do I tell it that the telephone number is the company is a common field? So it's got registration record and cash transfers, and you got those related together, and wants to be able to, on a form, be able to tell it that the telephone number is the common field and get the name of the record back. I'm going to look at first one of the out of the box entities and relationships, and then we'll add a new relationship to show you some other behaviors. So let's go first of all to contact. Now on contact, if you're familiar with the Common Data Service, Common Data Model, contact is a child of account. So you got a company and you got contacts that work for it. So there is a relationship, actually multiple relationships, but the one we're going to focus on is the account to contact company name relationship. Now you'll notice you don't see it right now. I need to change to all because it does hide some of them because there's just so stinking many of them that if it didn't, we wouldn't be able to find stuff. So sort A to Z, and now we see company name. There's also a one-to-many contact to account relationship for the primary contact. So let's look at the company name relationship. It's one company to multiple contacts. A one-to-many relationship basically puts, I think of the one side and the many side. So there's one account, multiple contacts. So if I go to an account and I look at the related contacts grid, I will see all the related contacts. If I go to the contact, I'll see a lookup that says company name that refers back to the company. That's the standard way it works, and makes sense. So you really need to think, if you try to figure out a relationship, I always ask where's the lookup field, because that's the many side of the relationship. If you're defining it from the contact or the child side, then you would do a many to one relationship. One to many and many to one are the same thing, just from different sides of the relationship. Okay, so we got that down. So there's this company name lookup. So the question is then, how does this lookup work? What does it show? All right, so if I go to the form, let's go to the form configuration for again, we're at the contact level. All right, so we want to look at the main contact form. And you'll see there's a lookup field on here called company name. I select it. There's several properties over here. So what does this show when I search? It always shows the name of the company. This is one of the reasons why the name field is critical, and some people, especially on certain records that are more joiner entities, the name doesn't necessarily make sense, so they don't put anything there, or they write new record. That's a bad thing, because that means if you have a lookup field, you're not going to know what record that is. However, you're not constrained only by what is in that field, by what you can search for. You can search for basically anything, and you can also show additional detail on there too. And I'll show you how. All right, so if we go back to the entity configuration, let me jump over to accounts for a second, because again, our lookup field is on the contact, but the properties that we need to change are over on the account. So I'm going to pull up the account configuration. And again, if you don't know where I am, I'm working in the solution in make.powerapps.com. I'm actually going through the Common Data Service entities because it's easier. But if you're making changes to this, always do it from a solution, so you can port it to other environments and you maintain your source control. Okay, so I'm on the account entity right now. So there's a couple things. One is displaying other fields on the form. So, well, the lookup field only shows the name of the related record. You can display whatever fields you want, even child records of that, on the form for the record with the lookup field. So I've got a contact for John Smith. I link to his company. I want to be able to show the company phone number, the company address, other things like that. All right, so I would go to a view, or I'm sorry, a form. There's this thing called a quick view form, and this is already created for account card. If you have your custom entities or custom relationships, you'll need to define this. But I choose account card, and this is basically a simple single column form where I can put whatever fields I want here. I already have the email, already have the phone, already have the company details, and some related entities, cases, and entitlements, but you could make it whatever. You could have related activities. This is great for if you have an opportunity where you want to have a grid of the activities or the contacts related to the parent customer of that opportunity. So this is already laid out for us. If I wanted to show some additional fields, let me just pick one here. And again, I don't know which one of these is going to contain data, but let's put the relationship type. That's a really common field there. All right, so I'll put relationship type there. And again, this is a quick view card that shows up where we that shows up on the form if we add it of the child record. So on the configuration for the contact form, what I want to do is I want to add that quick view form to this form so that when I'm looking at a child contact of an account, I can see the account details. So what I want to do is in the maker experience, open up the contact form and go to the component tree here. And from here, I can choose various things to add to the form. One of these is a quick view form. So I add this quick view form over here. And then what you need to do is you need to choose the properties of the quick view form. And you'll see here, select the quick view form and the lookup you need to link it to. So you need to use this lookup field to set the properties of the quick view form. And then I'm going to choose for the account, I'm going to choose my account card form. Keep in mind that company name is actually a company lookup or customer lookup, not just a account lookup. That's why it's got a little bit different properties. One is you can actually populate it to an account or a contact, which is nice. But in this case, I'm going to choose a form for the contact there. But again, the parent of this is normally going to be an account. So I don't really care about that. But now this puts this over here, and you can see a preview of it. It doesn't show anything right now, but basically these are read-only fields, and see our relationship type we added there. That's ready to go. So let's save this and publish it, and then we'll go look at what that looks like inside the app. All right, I am now in my model-driven app. I'm in the Dynamics 365 Sales Hub, but if you don't have Dynamics and just have Power Apps, this could be any model-driven app, really. So let's go ahead and go to our accounts, and we'll find one that has a contact related to it. That's really what we want to see. So go to Litware Co. and just verify that there's a Test Lindstrom contact related. That will work. And so let's go ahead and go to Test Lindstrom. Okay, so looking at this, you can see here's the lookup field company name. It's got Litware Co., which I can click in and hyperlink to. It also has these related fields over here. Now you notice they're blank. That's because my data didn't have that information. Let's go back here and let's add some information to it. Let's go info@litware.com and 888-123-4567, and then save that. So now back on my Test Lindstrom, you can see now that information contains data. And while it is read-only at this level, I still can do all the properties like clicking to email or click to dial. And it's very powerful because you can also show related records. So this is part of the relationship power of the Common Data Service, allowing me to very easily see that. So what if I wanted to, though, search, say I'm populating this and I want to search for by phone number and not by company name? Because again, if I'm typing in here, I can search for litware, but I want to say 888-123-4567. Let's go back to the configuration for a second. This is something that is a little bit unusual, I will say, and something that isn't readily obvious. So on the account, I'm going to go to the View tab. Now, first of all, before we get to how to make a field searchable from a lookup field, there's one more thing I wanted to show from the views here. So if I want to show, for example, in a view, I want to have not just the lookup field, but related values. I also can do that here. So if I choose a view like, let's just take active accounts, and I have things that are related to the account, not the child like the contacts, but something related to it. I can actually put those in there. So you can show parental relationships from here. So if I want to see things from the user, such as the user that created the record, I can expand that, and then I can add any of these fields to this view. So that is super powerful, and also another way to not have to duplicate fields between entities. A lot of people think they need to create the same fields. I need the phone number at multiple levels. You really don't. But the thing I wanted to show you here too is the ability to make lookup fields be able to search for other things than just the name. So if you go to the account, or go to the entity configuration for the entity that is in the lookup field, then you want to look for a view called Quick Find. It'll be Quick Find, in this case, active accounts. It might be Quick Find contacts, depending on where you're looking for. In this case, it's accounts. So there's one special property here that this has that other views don't have, which is find columns. And you can edit find columns, and if I want to add fields to it, I think we already have main phone number here, but let's just look at some other fields here we might want to add. You can really add any field that you want here. It is recommended that you don't put option sets in here because that will cause performance issues. So let's add this telephone 3 and address phone and other things like that. So back on my test Lindstrom account, if I go and I don't want litware, but instead I'm going to search based on the phone number. Let's type in 888-123-4567. Even though the name field is the only field that displays in the lookup field, you can see that since we defined find columns, we can now search for other things like the phone number and resolve things that way. So I think that's the answer to one of the questions in your forum post, which is how do I have one field that I can enter in but have it resolve the name? That's how you do it, through find columns in the Quick Find view. So let's go back to the contact configuration and look at a few more things that I think will be very helpful as you build out your apps. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new relationship because, again, the customer relationship has some special properties, and I just wanted to show kind of some other properties that are available from more normal relationships. So let's go to many to one, because again, we're on the contact level, but I want this to be a lookup field. So I'm going to do a many to one if I was on the other side. So let's say you have one contact, and again, lots of entities here, but let's choose opportunity, for example. An opportunity is something that's in the common data service if you have dynamics, but again, this could be any relationship. I'm just picking one that I know there is going to be data for. All right, so this is going to put a lookup for opportunity on the contact. Maybe we're saying this is the opportunity, this is the opportunity for this that's primary for this contact, or something like that. And just going through some of the properties here, one thing I always want to do is when I create the relationship, either you could also create this as a lookup field in the field list. That's sometimes easier. I always want to end that with ID in the field name, just because that makes it standard. Any of the system relationships that are lookups, except in the field service solution for some reason, have the letters ID at the end of the lookup field schema. Okay, and some other things that you should know is relationship behaviors. There's several different: parental, custom, and referential. And typically when you add a relationship, it's going to be referential. Referential is a relationship that doesn't have any constraints. Meaning if I reassign the parent, it's not going to reassign the children. If I share the parent, it's not going to share the children. But it also then will not constrain deletes. So if I delete the parent, it's just going to remove the relationship but leave the children. If it's a more serious relationship, kind of like the account to contact, where you want to have it be everything is reassigned when you reassign the parent record, you want to choose parental, but you can only have one parental relationship per entity. So you can't have, 5 parents. That's where custom comes in. Custom, so if I choose custom or parental, you'll notice we have this cascading behavior. This is really, really critical, because if you don't get this right, it's not going to work the way you want it to. So if I want to have it be this is a constrained relationship where it will not, it will delete. If it deletes, or it will, if I reparent and I link to somebody else, it'll reflect that relationship. You'll want to make sure you choose custom or parent. If there's already a parent relationship, then you'll want to go with custom. But keep in mind, this leads to a lot of unintended consequences, because if you have this set to, for example, reassign, and you don't want these reassigned, you want individuals to own different records there, and then you reassign somebody's account records or opportunity records, that's going to screw up your database basically. So generally I do referential unless there's a reason that it needs to be custom. Be constrained, I should say. So let's go with referential, and I'm going to choose done. So in my relationship, I've got my my opportunity relationship that I created. And I can see the details of this. There's one key thing that isn't here yet. We already talked about the relationship behavior, but there's one key thing here that is not settable from here, that you have to go into the classic settings. When we talk about classic, this is the way it used to be, and there's still one or two things, or 3, 4, 5 things that aren't now in the modern experience. But one of the things is, if I create a record from the parent, for example, I from opportunity create that contact record, I want to be able to control what fields are populated. That's called mapping. And this is pretty key, because one of the values of the relationship is I want to be able to create child records from the parent. It saves time, and also you can pass context to it. For example, there's fields that you want to populate already filled out, then you can make that happen. So I'm going to walk you through this. You go in the settings area, you go to customize the system, you go to entities, you go to, in this case, I would go to either opportunities or contacts. And in this case, it's a many-to-one relationship, because there's a lookup for opportunity on contact that we just. This is one thing I miss, is the ability to filter between one-to-many and many-to-one, because if you know what you're looking for, it's faster this way. Okay, so let's see the contact, and then the primary was opportunity. So here we've got our referential opportunity to contact relationship here. So this is where, in classic settings, you need to find the relationship and go to the mapping settings for it. And this is not something that's yet available in the modern experience. So from here, I can go and click mappings. And you'll see the only thing that's mapped by default is the opportunity ID to the lookup field. So that's, by creating a contact from the opportunity, be our new relationship, it's going to automatically populate the lookup field. But if I want to add additional ones, I can hit new and select the field that I want to map from the opportunity and click it on the contact here too. And that way it will fill these out. One thing to keep in mind though, if you have multiple relationships between the entities, like if you had 3 relationships between, say, and this is most common between things like users and records, or say accounts and contacts, you might have the parent account, the advisor account, all kinds of things there. There's only one mapping relationship between 2 entities. Even if you have 5 different lookup fields, there's only one mapping logic. So what this means is if I create say a contact from the opportunity and I had 4 different relationships there representing different types, it would populate all 4 of those lookup fields. And that's a problem because if you have like the case where you have the account, the primary account, the advisor account, the competitor, you don't want Acme Corporation appearing in all of them. So what you need to do is define some kind of a business rule or some kind of process. JavaScript is great for that, to clear those lookup fields out. So that's a bonus tip on working with the relationships and the mapping fields, and that's where you find it. Again, it's kind of a hunt for it if you don't know the classic settings, but it's probably not something you need to go in that often. But I would recommend setting it, especially if people are going to be creating it, because that saves a ton of time. Because if you're, say, creating contacts from accounts and you want the phone number and the address fields to automatically populate with the account stuff, it saves a ton of time for the users. But back on the entity, I'm going to now go to the form, because I want to show you some advanced form properties here for lookups. So let's go to contact and let's add another field here. And we want to add our opportunity field that we just created. There's our custom opportunity field. Let's go add this here. There we go. So what I wanted to show was the ability to control what can be searched for in the opportunity field. So there is by default, it uses what's called the lookup view. And so if I want to have it though only search opportunities, say open opportunities or other things like that, you can actually set the view that you can use, and you can say don't allow users to change this view, so that the only thing that they're searching is that main view. So that's a great way if you need to filter this. So you've got, I want to select an opportunity, but I only want it to be an opportunity that's active, or maybe a recently closed activity or something like that. That's a way. It's very common to use that for, I only want to search for accounts of a certain type. Now, unfortunately, I can't do that with the company name field because that's that customer lookup. But if you add a custom one, then you can use that. Where if I click on company name, you know, I don't have that option. There's one other thing though that is important to know about, that again is not yet in the modern experience. I need to go over to classic. Now this is handy though because I don't have to go navigate through the menus like I did before. In this case, I can go directly to the form configurator in classic and can click switch to classic. That's going to pop it up and just go directly to where I am. In this case, it's the classic form configuration. So here you see the form. It looks a little bit different, but it's the same form layout. You see there's our opportunity lookup. So I'm going to double click it. You can also select it and click change properties in the menu if you like to work that way, or if your double click finger is sore. So let's say we've got the properties. This is the related records filtering is the important thing here. So say I only want to show opportunities where the opportunity is related to the selected company. I can check the box and say only show records where, and then I can say choose the field that I want to filter by. So I can say where the account primary contact equals the account of the opportunity. This is backwards from the way I think. I would say where the related opportunities contact equals this contact, but or equals this account. But in this case, it works. So again, this is where I want to have a dependent lookup, where I want to have this lookup filtered to only records related to the first lookup. So here we got the company name lookup, and then we got the opportunity lookup. This lets me filter that. So in a few minutes, we've gone through creating relationships, we've gone through changing the mapping settings for them, we've gone through how to make fields searchable, we've gone through how to show additional fields, not only in views, but also on the form via the quick view form. So that's a lot for model-driven apps, but let's look also what you need to know working with lookups in Canvas apps as well as Power Automate. So now let's take a look at Canvas apps. So I've created a simple Canvas app with gallery right now, and I wanted to show how to work with lookup fields. So the opportunity field that we just created, if I go to, say, the properties of this gallery and go add fields or edit the fields in it, you'll notice when I search through here, it will give me the list of different fields here, but I don't see opportunity and I don't see company name. So how do I work with that? Okay, so what you need to keep in mind is it's a related entity. So the field, the ID for that field is stored on this record, but the actual name and other fields are not. And one thing that's really flexible with Canvas apps is you can display whatever field you want. So what you got to do is you got to do a little bit of expression here, but it's pretty easy because you can do dot notation. So let's say I want the opportunity name to display here. I could go this item dot opportunity, and there I see it, but that's not enough. It needs more. And then you can go dot and do what they call dot notation. So if I want this to show the topic, I could show the topic there easily, and there it shows up. So that's pretty simple. And that's the great thing is you can navigate through multiple relationships that way and show whatever you want there. The customer field, like the company name, is a little bit more complicated because that could be multiple relationships. So you can't just do the dot notation. I can click here and you'll see the full expression. Rather than going through all this, I will go show you the blog post here from the Microsoft product team and scroll down here for references. So you'll see here if is type. So you define an if statement saying if it's this type, and then you have the switch cases. So if it's users, as type users show full name, as type teams show team name. So back in my app here, you'll see here we do if is type this item company name contacts, as type contacts show the full name, as type accounts show the account name. So now let's look how to use lookup fields and relationships in Power Automate, both reading them and writing to them. Okay, so if we are going to do something with that opportunity, when the contact's updated and linked to an opportunity, here's how we might want to do that. So we're in Power Automate, as I say every time here, use a solution because we want to use the current environment connector. So let's go to our solution and let's open up the base solution. So let's first of all, let's go ahead and create a flow from our solution, and let's do the Common Data Service Current Environment Connector. And let's do it when a record is created, updated, or deleted. The trigger condition, I'm going to go with create or update. And the entity name, of course, is opportunities, always plural. The scope is organization. So the first thing I would say when you're working with this, where you're dealing with a related record from an update step specifically, what you need to know is this does not always return all the data, specifically the lookup field data. So whenever I do this and have it, and then I want to do something with a related child record or with a related record that's in a lookup field, I should say, I always want to do a get record step. Because while that'll have the ID if it's populated, it's not going to have the other details. So get the common data service current environment and then do get a record. By getting a record, you're going to be able to get the full details of that record that's related to it. So again, I like to type because I don't want to scroll through everything. And so now I'm going to then choose item ID from the dynamic content panel. Let's type opportunity. And that gives us the unique identifier of that item ID. Now I'll have that field so that if I want to then say update that opportunity, I'll have the details. If I wanted to send an email that has that information, I would be able to do that too. Just anything you want with any of the fields on either. Now I have all the fields from that were updated, or now I have all the fields that are on that contact record and the fields that are on the opportunity record. So now if say I wanted to update that opportunity, I could go to the common data service current environment and I could then create, delete, list records, and there's update a record. I can choose entity name and choose opportunities. And the item ID for that record would be from the get record. Our opportunity field. Then I can update whatever I want about that. So let's look too at if we wanted to not get the record, but instead we want to populate a lookup field. That's a little bit different. And this is one thing that a lot of people trip over in the current environment connector. So I'm just show you what I'm talking about here. So I'm going to go create a flow. Common data service current environment. So let's just say when a opportunity is created. So now we're on the we'll be on the opportunity side of the relationship, and I'm going to create a contact. And I'll show you how you need to populate the lookup field to make it related to the opportunity. So this is when an opportunity is created. Let's go ahead and create a contact. Let's go create new record, contact. All right, so I'm not going to bother with all these fields, but what I did want to show you was specifically the opportunity lookup field. And a lot of people will want to go and select this opportunity field and just put the ID of the record in there. And actually, if you use the other common data service connector, that's what you do. But if I just go and put opportunity from my create record step, this will fail. You have to specify the entity name in plural of this entity for it to work. And that's how it works in the web API. So that's how it works here. So if I go in opportunities and put opportunity in parentheses with the dynamic link, that will work. Same thing though with the regarding fields or that company name field that's a polymorphic lookup field. You can use just that one field and put accounts and then the account ID, or contacts and the contact ID. So once you get used to it, you're not going to trip over it, but just getting started like this, you do. It's especially confusing though switching back to the common data service connector, because there you'll have another field called type, reach, select opportunities in it. So just keep that in mind. So in this video, we've covered how to work with relationships, how to create them, how to add lookup fields to forms, how to set properties, how to filter lookups, how to restrict them to certain record views, how to work with them in model-driven apps to show related things in both views and forms. We showed in Canvas apps how to work with lookup fields in lookup field values, both polymorphic lookup fields and regular lookup fields in galleries and forms and other places. And then finally, we showed in Power Automate how to deal with lookup fields, getting records, getting data from them, and updating things, as well as populating lookup fields. One I didn't show that you should know about. So if I needed to clear a lookup field, or I needed to in bulk populate lookup fields, I don't want to do it this way because, again, it'd be slow if I was doing this in bulk. There's another step with the Common Data Service current environment that you should know about that is awesome. Actually, two different ones. So, and if you're still using the old Dynamics connector or the legacy one, you can't do this. But there's this step called relate records and unrelate records. This lets you populate, create one-to-many relationships and many-to-many relationships in bulk, and allows you to clear them out in bulk too by removing or unremoving. So if I'm just populating a single lookup field, I'll do it the way I showed you. But if you are going to be doing it through in bulk or from list records, mass associate, mass disassociate, you want to use the relate or the unrelate record steps in the Common Data Service current environment. Thank you for your question, and I'll see you around the forums.